Welcome to Nourished and Ready, the podcast about nourishing your body before, during, and after pregnancy. I'm Maya, and with me, as always, is Sara. Let's get into it. I want to open today with something that stopped me completely when I first understood it. Not in a frightening way, in an awe-inspiring way. I love those moments. What is it? In 28 days, before most women even know they're pregnant, a fertilized egg goes from a single cell to an embryo with a forming brain, a spinal cord, a beating heart, and the foundations of every organ system. In 28 days.
And the thing is, every single one of those developmental steps requires specific nutrients to happen correctly, not approximately correctly, correctly.
Precisely, because the blueprint is being written. And if certain nutrients aren't present at the cellular level, the blueprint has errors.
Some of those errors lead to miscarriage, some to developmental problems, and some are invisible until much later in life.
Which is why today we're going deep on the nutrients most directly involved in that blueprint writing process, the infrastructure of cell division itself.
Let's start with the biological mechanism because I think understanding what's actually happening makes the nutrition guidance feel urgent in the right way, not fear-based, but purposeful.
Right. So the most critical process in those first weeks is cell division. A single fertilized egg has to divide billions of times to form a complete human being. And every single time a cell divides, it has to copy its entire DNA. 3 billion base pairs with extraordinary accuracy.
3 billion. One significant copying error in the wrong location can be catastrophic for development.
And the nutrients that make accurate DNA copying possible are folate, B12, zinc, and magnesium. These 4 are the absolute infrastructure of cell division.
Starting with folate, which we touched on last week. Folate is needed to synthesize the actual building blocks of DNA. Without sufficient folate, replication becomes error-prone, cell division slows or goes wrong.
And this is precisely why neural tube defects, which occur in that first month, are so directly linked to folate status at the time of conception, not at the time of the positive test, at the time of conception.
That's the distinction that changes everything. Now, B12. Because I think this is where many women have a genuine blind spot.
Tell me more.
B12 and folate are metabolic partners. They share a critical pathway. You literally cannot use folate properly without adequate B12. A deficiency in either one impairs the other's function.
So a woman could be supplementing methylfolate faithfully, doing everything right on that front, and still have compromised DNA synthesis because her B12 is low.
Exactly, which is why some researchers have argued that our collective focus on folate supplementation without equally emphasizing B12 misses half the picture.
And the B12 situation is particularly important for women eating plant-based or low animal product diets because B12 is found almost exclusively in animal products: meat, fish, eggs, dairy.
Right, and the form matters significantly. Methylcobalamin, the bioactive form, is what you want on your supplement label. Cyanocobalamin is the cheap synthetic version and is considerably less well utilized by the body. That's a critical distinction.
Methylcobalamin. Now, zinc, because I feel like this one is the great underdog of preconception nutrition.
It really is. So zinc is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, and it's particularly critical for egg maturation, fertilization, and the very first cell divisions after conception.
The animal research on this is striking. Zinc deficiency before and early pregnancy leads to dramatic developmental abnormalities. And the epidemiological data in humans consistently shows that women with low zinc have higher rates of pregnancy complications.
Food sources, oysters, are the single richest source, extraordinary amounts of zinc, though they're not exactly an everyday food for most people. Red meat, poultry, eggs, legumes, and pumpkin seeds are all reliable regular sources. But it's not just about what you eat, it's about the purity of those sources. It is absolutely critical to choose foods that are as fresh as possible and, as much as you can, ensure they are entirely free from pesticides and artificial additives. We're talking about nourishing your body at a cellular level, so the cleaner the fuel, the better the outcome for both you and your baby.
That is right. And magnesium. We will keep coming back to magnesium because it is that foundational. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions. It's the body's master mineral in many ways. But specifically in this context, it's an essential cofactor for vitamin B6. Without sufficient magnesium, B6 cannot be properly absorbed or activated. So there's this cascade: low magnesium,
impaired B6 activation, compromised protein metabolism, reduced amino acid availability for egg development. Everything connects.
And magnesium deficiency is extraordinarily common. It's been depleted from our agricultural soils. It's refined out of processed grains, and modern life actively depletes it. Stress, caffeine, and alcohol all increase magnesium excretion.
Which means most people are running a magnesium deficit without any obvious symptoms until the symptoms become hard to ignore. Muscle tension, poor sleep, anxiety, headaches.
The recommendation is to prioritize food sources: dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, and for most women in the preconception window, a magnesium glycinate supplement is a genuinely sensible addition. Glycinate is the most bioavailable and the gentlest on the digestive system. I want to spend
a moment on something that doesn't get discussed enough in conversations about early pregnancy: miscarriage and nutritional deficiency, because there's real data here that most women never encounter.
Yes. And I want to say before we go into this, the intention is not to create anxiety or guilt. It's to share information that is genuinely empowering. Because if nutrition is a contributing factor, that means it's something women can actually address.
Exactly. So, researchers have consistently found that more than half of the women who have experienced miscarriage showed signs of folate deficiency when tested. And multiple studies show that when women who had suffered repeated miscarriages were given adequate nutritional support, particularly folate, vitamin E, and vitamin C, they went on to carry healthy pregnancies.
One researcher documented 8 women who had suffered a combined total of 227 previous miscarriages. After nutritional intervention, they gave birth to 61 healthy babies. That is a remarkable turnaround.
And it speaks to something we believe deeply. Nutritional deficiency is not a personal failure. It's the inevitable result of a food system that strips nutrients out of everything and a medical culture that
Rarely tests for these deficiencies until something has already gone wrong. Precisely. Vitamin E specifically has a protective role in early pregnancy that's worth naming. It protects cell membrane integrity and reduces oxygen demand in the newly formed embryo, which matters because oxygen supply is genuinely limited in those first weeks.
And here's a connection that most women on standard prenatal protocols don't know. Vitamin E is actively destroyed by iron, which means if you're taking an iron-containing prenatal, it may be working against your vitamin E status at the very moment vitamin E is most critical.
That's such a critical distinction. The practical guidance: if your doctor has recommended iron supplementation, take your vitamin E at a completely separate time, at least 8 hours apart from your iron dose.
Next week, we move into food, because the supplement conversation matters, but food is always the foundation. We're talking about which foods are genuinely powerful for preconception and which ones are quietly working against you even when they seem healthy.
Including the one food that appears in virtually every chapter of nutritional science and that most people eat about once a year: liver. It's always liver. See you next week.
If today's episode was useful to you, the best thing you can do is share it with one person who needs to hear it. A friend who's trying to conceive, a woman who's newly pregnant, someone in your life who's been asking questions about nutrition and doesn't know where to start. One share makes a real difference. And if you want to go deeper between episodes, come find us on Facebook. Search Cellular Healing, the real transformation. It's our community for everything we talk about here. Real food, real nutrition, and building genuine health from the inside out. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for listening to Nourished and Ready. See you next week.